come back.
I trust you didn't lose sleep over it.
Worrying about you be like wondering if the sun gonna come up. Ain't about to wild out over it.
God is non-binary. God is queer. God is...
First two words of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father. Done. So as far as God being non-binary and God being queer, just everything about that is absolutely wrong. And you, sir, do not speak for our Father.
God is autistic. Let me unpack that for you. God is non-binary because God is the author of gender. God is gender.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to sound like the Power Rangers theme, but no. See, a doctor by the name of John Money is the author of gender. God is the architect of biology. I mean, if we want to just be plain and flat about this. Now, the word is that this man is a pastor, but one of the things that I learned, being the son of an actual man chosen by God to speak his word, word, is that one of the quickest ways to determine whether or not you are dealing with someone who was chosen by God is if they're playing these games. Because so many people, it's such a good hustle. It really is. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I can never be angry or upset with atheists. Like, I completely get it, because there's a ton of people who will sit there and just be the worst people, quote unquote, in the name of the Lord. And you know what? It sucks. It really does, but that's why it's important for us to be able to parse these charlatans out, these people who do not speak for our Father. It's important for us to be able to parse them out in what they say. And within, what is this, 9 seconds, this guy has completely devalued anything, the rest of the video. But, content, so let's keep going.
Genderless and genderful. They are neither male nor female, and they are both. They refer to themselves both as male and female throughout the text, and yet theology would tell us that God does not have gender, so by definition, God is non-binary. God...
You said a whole bunch of nothing, bro. Because when you say the text, are you speaking of the Bible? Because the Bible's pretty clear about that shit. The Bible's pretty clear that God's pops, like that is our Father. It's like, real talk. It's the structure, in many ways, it's the structure of the familial unit, where, God's our Father, Christ is our Redeemer, man's our brother, right? So, thusly, in the eyes of the familial unit, God is the Father. You know what I'm saying? The mother is in many ways a bit of a redeemer. She can take the redeemer role, and then you have the child, which is the brothers and sisters, the sibling the sibling portion of the hierarchy. So as we destroyed that here in the West, particularly in America, through child support and the interjection of government with our laws, with our natural laws, you end up with weirdos like this who are like, God's non-binary, God is genderless because God created gender. When honestly, just look, John Money, gender, look it on up. None of this shit happened. Like, none of this stuff has been around for but so long, okay? like these concepts aren't really all that old if you factor in the life and time in the history of time.
God is queer because, like gender, God is the author of all sexualities. All sexualities exist in God, and yet God is not explicitly sexual. And since asexuality is part of the LGBTQ spectrum, we can say God is queer.
See, the thing about God, right? At least in my humble opinion, is that God is the energy, right? God's in every atom. God is really like in from the top of your head, the furthest point of your head to the furthest point of your toenails, right? Like, God's all of it. And So in a way, I'm not gonna sit here and say he's 100% wrong. I mean, because if you want to sit there and like, yo, God's in sexuality and everything else like that, I mean, sure, champ. But at the end of the day, he is still our father. He is still king. He like in his way, his role, the way he views things, everything that you're saying. I mean, it is 100% against his design. Real talk. I mean, because most of the shit that you're talking about is mental stuff. It has nothing to do with biology. Oh, I'm asexual, I'm demisexual, or anything else like that. Hey, if you jerk it or stick something in it, does it feel good? Then guess what? Like that's about as far as God got to go with it. Like he created the design. Everything else is what you as an individual decide to do with it. And when folks like this, whatever you've decided to do with it on your end, sir, cool. But as far as trying to make it like some type of like normalizing it, that's where we're not gonna sit here and fuck around. You can't sit here and put God into that because that's all mental. That's all within you, all in your head, my guy.
And finally, God is autistic because autism is a divergence from typical neurology, and since no being in existence has a mind like the mind of God, God is by definition neurodivergent, and as a
You hear what he's doing, right? Like you're putting all of these. Well, I actually just had a conversation with somebody about this. You see, why do you think God sent his only begotten son down, Jesus Christ? My theory is always remains to this day that he, like God himself, could not live the life of a man because he's just all powerful, all seeing, all knowing. You know what I'm saying? Like when you got that kind of power, you just can't contain it in such a small frame, right? So he had his son come down and explain to him exactly how having a penis can make a man make choices and decisions that like it's like God, like you know what you did with the whole rib thing, right? With the ladies and the rib thing. I mean, that rib is absolutely delicious. So like like what you're doing is putting saying the attributes of a human being onto God himself, and that it just it can't. There's a reason he sent his son down. Now, like you're describing the reason he would have his son come down and actually sacrifice himself for all the sinning that we do here is because saying Jesus came down and lived life as a man, not some non-binary like saying a gender weirdo, and recognize exactly what it was like to be to live in this world. And so thusly he's like, yo, Pop, cut him a break. And he has. And throughout that entire break, we have basically gotten to a point where we're at right now, where somebody like you, who let's be real, you were not called upon by the Lord to speak on his behalf, but you feel as if you can come out and speak and say how how God is all these different weirdo things that God had absolutely nothing to do with. They were all these concepts are 130% man-made and man-driven.
As an autistic person, I like to say God is autistic. God always identifies with and as the most marginalized people in society.
If you go to if this is your pastor, you might want a refund. Like it's one of the reasons I don't go to church myself. I'm like, man, I can get the hell on my own, bro. I promise. If this is your pastor, you can get to hell on your own. It's really easy. It's super easy. You don't need his help. All right. So guys, with that being said, we're gonna bring this one to an end. All the internet stuff. If you like it, toss it a like, dislike, go ahead, do that too. Nobody's scared of you. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice. And we get videos like this every single day. Share because sharing is caring. And YouTube and Bitchute like are the biggest fans of your boy over here for very obvious reasons. Bang the bell for notifications. Get something from Teespring. Check me out on Odyssey as well. Links in the description. Actually go in the description box and do damage and speak. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Yeah, man. Like charlatans, man. Charlatans, snake oil salesmen. false prophets. Their time will come, but it's important for you to be able to recognize, like when you're listening to one, and any dude that starts with this female, like, you know what I'm saying, like with that gets all weird about quote unquote gender, even though we call it sex here, and try to attribute try to put the attributes of man onto God. Like, bruh, this is not anybody worth listening to. But you may disagree, and that's what my comment section's for. Till the next one.
Your booze mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer. Every breath I take without your permission raises my self-esteem.